I think you and I spend so much time in the world of Mavericks and sort of the far front end of progressive business practices that it's really easy to get caught up in the spirit of, the impossible is possible. We can disrupt everything. The only way to play the game is to change the game. And I think we also, by the same token, spend time mixing it up with leaders at every level in big, established, traditional organizations whose first response to those stories is, well, that's great, that's inspiring, but we really couldn't do that here. Our organization is fundamentally unchangeable. Our industry is fundamentally unreformable. And, the leaders are, fundamentally intractable. This is just not possible. And so I guess the question to you is when we're looking in that realm of big, established, tradition-bound organizations that do seem unreformable, unchangeable, what's the way in?
A few nights ago, I was asked to give a talk at the kind of annual kind of gala dinner for the Henry Ford Health System in Detroit. It's one of the organizations I write about in Practically Radical. This is, classic big urban inner city hospital created in 1915 by Henry Ford itself. So it too is, a few years from now will be celebrating its 100th anniversary. And so you've got this gigantic hospital in the middle of the healthcare crisis of the United States, in Detroit, one of the most challenged cities you can imagine. And the renaissance at this organization, led by its CEO, Nancy Schlichting, over the last 6 or 7 years is absolutely phenomenal. So if you look at the main hospital in Detroit, 1,000 beds and just this huge honking thing, and what this hospital has done in terms of dramatic improvements in quality, dramatic reductions in mortality, setting aspirations for itself. For example, they've got a psychiatric hospital which treats really the most depressed patients in the city of Detroit. And they set a goal for themselves 4 years ago. The goal is 0 suicides among this population. And thus far, they have managed to achieve that goal over the last. So you've got the most depressed people in one of the most economically depressed cities, and they've been able to essentially eliminate suicides by that's the goal, which would seem unattainable, but to do it, they've just unleashed a whole set of really incredible creative practices. So they've taken this almost 100-year-old hospital and just absolutely reimagined it. But beyond that, what they said a few years ago is that they got permission to build a brand new hospital about 20 miles outside the city limits in West Bloomfield, Michigan. And they said, if we're going to start from scratch with a blank sheet of paper mindset, we're not just going to build a really good hospital. We're going to rethink and reimagine what a hospital can look like, what the experience of going to a hospital can feel like, and maybe most importantly, what is the role of a hospital in a community today, not as a place where sick people go to get better, but as a center for community well-being so that the population doesn't get sick in the first place. And you conceive of the long-term definition of success for a hospital being fewer people actually come as patients to the hospital and more people come to live a healthier lifestyle and so on. So they built this incredible new hospital, which is unlike anything I've ever seen. But the most important thing it is to recruit as the CEO of the hospital a guy named Gerard Van Grinsven, who was a senior executive at Ritz-Carlton Hotels. And this 3 years ago when they brought him in, this at least tremendous controversy. What does somebody from the hospitality industry know about running a hospital? But their point was, if we want to rethink and reimagine what a hospital can be, why would we have a long-time hospital executive running this place? So I was at this dinner a few nights ago, and the COO of the whole system got up to give a talk before me, and he said something that really boggled my mind. He said, we no longer think it's radical to be radical. We think it's logical to be radical, because if you're in an industry as messed up as this one, how could you possibly believe that slow, small, incremental change would deliver the results you need to deliver to do something great in our field? And so, in some sense, the only logical response to the challenges they face is to think and behave really radically. And needless to say, as the author of a book called Practically Radical, that kind of warmed my heart. But I mean, really, it's a wonderful group of people, but a kind of unlikely institution to really do things this bold